Good evening.
Good evening.
This is my fifth story, and I love this. When I heard the title, How I Saved Myself, I sat down immediately and started writing on a tablet, and when I finished, I had 17 pages. Because I am so grateful for so many things, and because of my age, I've had a chance to do that. But I'm going to start with freshman year in high school. I was put in the C section, A, brilliant, B, smart, C, no hope. And I didn't know a soul. And I just felt alone when this tiny, tiny nun, about this big, came into the room and said, "Is Thomas Kenyon in here?" Oh God, they're going to kick me out. She come to the hallway. She said, "Thomas," she said, "Sister Janice from your 8th grade said that I should speak to you because I am working on an advanced degree at St. Louis University in people who have trouble reading, and I wondered if you would want to be a part of my study." And I said, "Am I retarded?" And she said, "No, you're not retarded, but there's certain things you hear you can repeat. Sister just felt that I should take a look at you, but I have to ask your parents." So she got permission from my parents, so that for my first year, every afternoon, last period, she would sit and work with me on my reading and numbers. Okay, sophomore year, my parents fell on hard times, and I was taken out of the high school, Bishop DeBoer High School, which I loved, and said I was going to go to public school. And I knew a Catholic boy from South St. Louis going to a public school would I'd just get beat up every day, so I did not want to go there. So lo and behold, I decided, what can I do? So I was cleaning out my locker when Sister Praxedis, another nun, saw me. And she said, "What are you doing in the hall?" And I said, "I can't come to school anymore because my parents can't afford tuition." And she said, "Come into my office." So I went in the office. I was crying. And she said, what's going on? And I told her the story. She said, "Here's what we're going to do, Tom. I'm going to give you a job after school working with Mr. Hacker, the custodian, for $1 an hour, and we're going to pay off your tuition." I saved myself. Fast forward a little bit. I graduated from high school. My junior and senior year, I had wonderful grades, not super, not much better than the first 2 years. But when I applied to St. Louis University, I was denied. So, being a kid who didn't know any better, I just went down and asked to speak to the Dean of Admissions. And so, why? And he could hear me talking to the receptionist behind the desk, and he came out and he says, "Young man, why are you here?" I said, "Because I can't understand why I've been admitted." And he said, "What's your name?" I said, "Thomas Kenyon." And he said to her, "Look up his file. Come and sit down." And I said, "I've worked 3 jobs so I could come to this university. And if I don't come here, I'm not going to go to any school, any other university." So he looked at he said, "Well, why were your grades the first 2 years not as good as the last 2? And I said, "I can tell you, Dean, is that Father Shockley said I was college material." He said, "John Shockley said that?" I said, "Yeah." He got on the phone. "John, O'Keefe here. I've got this kid who said he's college material." And yeah, that's what he said. Yeah. "Oh, good. Okay, you're in for a year on probation. You have to put yourself out there." My uncle told me when I left home after I graduated from St. Louis U, he said, Tom, you're a very bright kid, you have a nice personality, but you have to put yourself where luck can find you. Don't wait. And that stuck with me. So I get to DC, I'm looking for my first job. A buddy from St. Louis he was there, had a good job selling Herman Miller furniture. And he said, Tommy, be a natural. I said, the pay was good, expenses, etc. He said, and the personnel director's going to be here in the next couple of days. Want me to set up an appointment? And I said, would you? He said, yes. He set us up an appointment. I could tell that he liked me and enjoyed me. He said, but Tom, we always ask that you take an assessment as to how effective you would be as a Herman Miller salesman. I can give it to you now if you'd like. He said, but don't lie, tell the truth. I took it, and about 2 weeks later, I get a letter in the mail. While you have many fine qualities, one of them is in Herman Miller. You can imagine how crestfallen I was. I mean, I was just heartbroken because I needed a job, number one. And so my friend said to me, Tom, you should call him and ask him why they said that. I said, I can't call him. He said, he's a lovely guy, and he was very taken with you. So I decided I'd sit down, and I called him on the phone. And his name was Perkins. I said, Mr. Perkins, this is Tom Kenyon. I saw you in Washington, D.C., and, I got a letter that I'm not material for Herman Miller. And he said, what's your name again? So I could hear him go through a file cabinet. And he sat down, and he said, whoa. I said, yeah. He said, I'm going to be in D.C. in 2 weeks, and I'm going to take you to lunch. And I said, well, thank you very much. He said, yeah. He said, I'm not going to let this one go by. I said, okay. So for 2 weeks, I'm trying to figure out how I can talk him into hiring me. We sat down, he took out a 3x5 card, and he said, you would suck at furniture sales. I said, what does that mean? He said, you don't care if anybody buys furniture. I said, but I could sell it. He said, you wouldn't like it. You wouldn't. He said, this isn't for you. That's it. But I'm going to tell you, the reason I wanted to see you was because your aptitude came out as something I've never seen with that high a score. Oh God, what's going to happen to me? And he said, you are going to be the best salesperson I can imagine, because what you can sell are inanimate objects, things people can't see, ideas. He said, you will be great at that. I said, well, what kind of a job is that? I'm sorry. Come on, help me out here. And so, with that, he said, just keep looking for something that you're selling isn't something you can hold in your hand. So in those days, you read the newspaper, the one ads, to see what was going on. So I'm looking at the one ads, and there it is. National Alliance in-home, that's years later. The American Institute for Foreign Study, looking for sales representatives to work for study abroad programs. Well, you can't hold a study program in your hand, And so, and also, I had the good fortune to be able to go to Europe between my junior and senior year, so I had some background in that. And I wrote a letter, told them about myself, told them that I think I could really sell the programs. They hired me. I took the job. Within 5 years, I was director of the college division. My wife and I traveled literally all over the world, opening campuses for American students to study abroad. I don't want to say I did it, but I was instrumental in having the first American university in London or anywhere else in Europe that was accredited. And in between all of that, I was able to get my master's degree from Georgetown University. O'Keefe was still working, so I sent him a note. And I said, thank you for having trust in me. And he wrote back on the same piece of paper, I knew you could do it.